Ignition.
A real clockwork soldier.
Generation Orange in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We're live.
We're live, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I don't know why I did that. But...
I don't either. I'm giving you the strangest, like, what the heck was that? This is Generation Orange. I don't know what that was, but this is Generation Orange. We are a weekly Houston soccer, professional soccer internet show, and hopefully at some point actual podcast. I mean, technically we are a podcast, but until we get an audio editor, we're kind of just more an internet show. But thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. If you are in the YouTube chat, feel free to chat it up, but also do us a favor. If you're watching the video on YouTube, go ahead and hit the like button. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button, because if you subscribe, you will find out via notification on your phone or other device when we go live. And that also includes the Down in the Valley internet show, which goes live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central. We go live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central. And also, if you could do us a huge favor and hit the share button and share that out over your various social media platforms. And, you know, if you have anybody in particular you want to text message it to, feel free to copy that link and send it to them that way as well. And we will very much appreciate that for sure. So it was a very Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of week, Edson. It was.
Why do you think I started like that?
No, that had nothing to do with it.
So just quickly, what's up, guys? Blues fan Cisco. Be sure to, like he said, share it and let everybody know in Reddit. And don't forget, we do have the tipping link in the description. So you guys want to donate anything, we greatly appreciate it. And you can always leave a message when you donate, and we can read it online and in the air.
For sure. Yeah, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of week, not only for the Dynamo, but just in general for the Orange organization, if you will. We started the week on Wednesday with probably the highlight easily of the season with the Dynamo victory in penalty kicks, coming down to the 8th penalty kick, I believe, 7th penalty kick, that's what it was, 7th penalty kick. It was fantastic. It was a momentous occasion, momentous moment, and it definitely felt that way in the stadium. Yes. Then we followed that up with a really not good showing, in my opinion. I thought we had moments, but not great showing. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute with our first guest, Derek Stowers. Sorry. So we'll get him on here in just a second to talk. But yeah, with the way the Dynamo played to end the week, with the way that the Dash played to end the week was very, very good for them. And then with the way the Toros played to end the week, less so good for them. With that said, I want to introduce our first guest, and I want to give him a proper introduction. So Derek Stowers also writes and co-edits and co-manages Dynamo Theory. That's correct, Derek. Am I wrong in that?
You're right.
Thought so. Just want to make sure. And he usually does the weekly player ratings. Is that right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, player ratings, quick thoughts on stuff, and just additional pieces here and there.
And then he's also super active on social media. Whenever there's Dynamo discussions, you can always count on Derek finding them at some point, somehow, some way. Derek has some fantastic takes, we're super excited to have Derek on. Actually, we've been wanting to get him on really ever since we started this thing, but we finally had a chance to kind of, now that we've got some of our ends squared away in terms of the stream and in terms of phone stuff, it just made it a lot easier for us to kind of coordinate to do this. So first of all, Derek, welcome to Generation Orange. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
For anybody who doesn't know, or anybody who doesn't know, that was correct grammar. Derek and I actually go way back. Derek and I actually were part of Dynamo Theory. Derek, I need you to give me the year because I don't even remember anymore how far back that was.
I don't know. A while ago.
A long time ago. And I only bring this up because I need to toot my own horn for a second. If I'm not mistaken, I kept pushing you to write for Dynamo Theory years and years and years ago, and you kept pushing back on me, and then you finally did, and it was glorious and it was amazing, and I was so happy and so proud of you. So I just want to throw that out there. Yeah, he's the whole reason that things happened. So good work with that, Derek. By the way,
we won't go there.
No, we won't. But you did a great job, and I just wanted to throw that out there that you were always kind of one of those engaged fans from the very beginning of Dynamo Theory's tenure, and I'm just very, very, very elated to see what you've kind of grown that into and what you and Alicia have worked that into. It's been fantastic to watch that thing grow and just continue to support the Dynamo community in the way that it has. So just a few questions for you to just kind of get rolling and answer them as you see fit. I'm not expecting any specific answer, so. First question, overall, how did you feel the Dynamo performed at Columbus? See, normally you get to ask everybody else what they thought of players, and I'm actually going to ask you what you actually thought of the performance at Columbus.
Yeah, you flipped the script on me.
To start the show, no less. It's fantastic. Yeah,
right. I thought the Columbus game was a bit of a mixed bag. I think when I saw the lineup originally, it had Wenger up in the right wing spot, which for the suspended Albert Ellis. I thought I was optimistic about that lineup because I like Wenger. I think he can attack people one-on-one very well. He doesn't do that enough, even when he's playing as an attacking role. But instead, I saw him sitting further back, and it was pretty. Even though the formation that was tweeted out by the Dynamo, that it was a 4-3-3, it really resembled a back five and a top two. And I thought overall that it was successful in the sense that they were getting some possession. They were stopping. They were stopping a really good Columbus crew that's really good with their 1-2s and the final attacking third. And they were good at getting in the way of those. And credit Joe Willis, too, for having some really big saves. But it doesn't lend itself to trying to score a lot of goals. And credit going the other way for Zach Steffen, who had some phenomenal saves as well.
Absolutely.
The game easily could have gone a different way if we had a different keeper in either goal.
Yeah, agreed.
It wasn't bad. I thought that their game plan, even though I'm not a fan of that game plan, was well executed. But because it doesn't necessarily lend itself to scoring a lot of goals, it lends itself to absorbing pressure. This game could have gone either way. We could have stolen a goal and won, and the conversation could have been pretty different. But as what happens in typical Dynamo series, we conceded late, which has basically become a style of play for the Dynamo.
Absolutely.
Right?
So, second question, since we're doing ratings, how would you rate the referee at Columbus?
Oh, Mark Geiger. I don't understand how a dive in the box doesn't get you a yellow card every single time.
Absolutely.
I've looked at how the rule is written, and it's supposed to be unsporting behavior because it's an intention to deceive the referee into calling a penalty.
Yep.
And Zardes, that looked like a pretty dive to me.
Yeah.
So that should have been a second caution for him and a sending off. The Zardes goal is really, I think Mark Geiger should have taken a look. It was close enough and it was late enough for him to take a look. And I get it. VAR is in his ear, and VAR is only as good as the person watching. But as a center, if you're not sure, take a look.
Absolutely.
Take a look yourself.
Yeah.
Well, and Eddie brought that up last week too on the show. He mentioned that one thing that he wishes center refs would do a lot more of is really listen to their, to the ARs and the VAR officials more readily. And he really wished a lot of ARs would be more, would be
Take
more
the initiative.
Yeah, would be more forceful in calling fouls and pointing out obvious errors and things like that, instead of leaving it up to the head ref to constantly have to be in that mindset of, I have to get it right. I have to get it right. When in reality, the AR should be helping him get it right.
The thing about it is, and I know Eddie mentioned that week as well, was the fact that one of the unwritten rules, so to speak, of VAR, at least with MLS, for assistant refs, is if in doubt, don't mark it.
Leave your flag down.
Yes, leave your flag down and VAR review it.
Yep.
That is obviously in theory when everything is fine and dandy.
Yeah.
But as we know, with pro referees, nothing is fine and dandy, even with VAR.
Absolutely. So next question, and this will kind of tie into the last question and then really the question before that. But, the Dynamo are definitely in a interesting slump through this part of the season. So what do you think is the biggest cause or biggest reason for this slump in this season? Is it injuries? Is it Cabezas being out? Is it poor finishing? Is it poor possession? Is it tactics? Is it referees? Derek?
Boy, it's kind of like the perfect storm, isn't it? Like all of these things have worked together to screw the Dynamo out of points. Injuries are huge, and Cabezas, the team MVP, he's a glue guy. He is the reason why that team was so successful at distributing the ball from the back and pushing it up. That's huge. Poor finishing, I think that the team itself is designed to just take off and hit as many shots as you can. Mm-hmm. Does that mean, you're going to miss some 1v1s? Of course. I don't know how many 1v1s Manotas has missed lately, but he's still finding the net because he's getting more chances.
Absolutely.
So that's fine by me. Possession, we've never been really a good possession team, so that doesn't really matter to me. Referees, you can't control. You can control yourself, and I think that the Dynamo in which game was that? Where there's the 3 red cards.
That was.
I don't think they handled themselves very well.
No, they did not.
That was ugly, and it was bad by the refs in a lot of ways, but it was bad by our players. You've got to control yourself. Tactics is something I continually circle back to because we know what our strengths are. We are a good counter-attacking team. We are a good attacking team, period. We are forward-thinking in that way. And we see all the time the Dynamo, like in Columbus, kind of double down on defending. Either they'll defend a lead, or if they're on the road, they'll play it safe and try to steal something.
Yeah.
And we do this, and our defense isn't good. It's not healthy, and even when it is healthy, I don't think it's good enough to really sit back and absorb pressure for 45 minutes or 90 minutes or even the last 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not good at doing that.
Well, and it's interesting to me because, a lot of fans have obviously made very big, have made it very clear that the officiating has been subpar. But I think it's only fair for Dynamo fans and really us in general as Dynamo fans to take a step back and realize that, first of all, the Dynamo are putting themselves in this position. If you're netting more of your opportunities that, are going awry, then a referee decision is not going to win or lose a match for you. It's just going to make the match a little bit closer. Saturday's match, for instance, the fact that they didn't put away any of their chances and the fact that Zach Steffen was literally standing on his head for the entire match, that allowed for the offsides, no offsides call to determine the match instead of the Dynamo having a 2-3-0 lead at that point in that particular moment not mattering. And so I think that's important for us to remember that, especially as we talk tactics, that, tactically speaking, if you're expecting a close match, then you're also expecting that you could potentially leave it up to the official to make the call on which way that match goes. And with the way the Dynamo have gotten bad calls, and they've been bad calls, you need to take that into account, and it needs to be something that, we need a big enough cushion that it's not going to matter how many times the official tries to, accidentally, makes a bad call or decides, makes a decision that goes against us. And whether that's go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, I was just going to say real quick, I agree with all of that. And the other part is, if you play a close game, you can give yourself, you might make a mistake and give up. It might not be the official's fault. It might be your fault,
Absolutely.
Right? So I agree about the cushion being important because, we've seen what the team is capable of playing at, the level that they're capable of playing at. A great example recently was the U.S. Open Cup quarterfinal against Sporting Kansas City.
Yeah.
They didn't let off the gas once.
No.
They were hungry.
They
scored 4 goals.
Even when SKC scored, they went right back and took it at them. They didn't just back off and try to go into a defensive shell. They literally kept their foot on the gas the entire match.
Yeah, because they knew.
Yeah, and one thing that I think that does is, so when you're scoring that many goals, it becomes a little easier because the other team is going to now have to commit numbers forward in order to try and get an equalizer or get a goal back.
Absolutely.
And what that does is it opens up more space for Elise and Kyoto and Manotas. So they have more room to run. And when you give those guys room to run, they're going to get chances.
Yep.
And, they'll give up goals like they gave up one at the very end. Who cares? They won. They won by
Exactly.
2 goals.
At that point, that goal doesn't matter one bit, and
As long as we get the 3 points.
as long as we get the 3 points. Well, and again, though, the thing is, if the Dynamo put themselves in a position where that one goal that they give up, whether it's an official decision or their own mistake, that goal doesn't matter. It does at the end of the match. It doesn't matter if you shut the team out. It doesn't matter if you don't shut the team out. If you win, you win. Period. End of story.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I feel like that maybe as fans we're taking the easy way out by putting all the blame onto the officials when, yes, they've been bad, but every team has had to deal with bad officials and bad, very questionable calls and questionable non-calls that have decided matches. It's up to the Dynamo to understand that their responsibility is to make it so that the officials' calls can't affect the match, that they can't affect the outcome of the match. And I think you hit the nail on the head. They're a counterattacking team. They've got speed to burn. They've got, they're gonna get the chances. So make the most of the chances you get. Make sure that you're applying the proper pressure on the proper spaces so that Elise and Kyoto can have that space to make moves on defenders and get open space. And just understand that that's what you've got to do for 90 minutes. You can't do that for 65, 70 minutes and then go, okay, we've done enough. It's not enough until that whistle blows at the end of the match.
Which is it's just interesting when Coach Cabrera last time at the press conference, he was like, well, the problem is like our defense, the defense is lacking because of so many injuries and so many suspensions and things like that. Yet Wilmer knows this, but he continues to double back and want to defend a lead or want to defend a 0-0, and especially on the road. And that is where with just one play that the other team has and they take advantage of it, and we come back with nothing.
Absolutely. So Derek, another question. Let's go ahead, Derek. Did you have something else for them?
Go
I'm sorry.
ahead. I was just going to say it's playing it safe. Plain and simple, it's too safe because you can get exposed and if there's a poor finishing night and they're not putting away those chances, then you are more exposed at the back. But I don't think you should necessarily play to a style that doesn't suit your personnel. And
Exactly.
that's at the end of the day, that's what I think.
Exactly.
We definitely should not be playing Park the Bus. That's Jose Mourinho, not Wilmer Cabrera style.
Yes.
Okay, so switching gears on you real quick. Kind of, only sort of switching gears. We'll switch gears again here in just a second. But this question I wanted to ask you. What changes or moves would you, as theoretical general manager or coach, make heading into the final stretch of the summer and into the final matches of the season?
Right. So the transfer window's closed, so you can't go out and try and get a new glue guy, a good defensive midfielder that can pull the strings from the back and make those necessary tackles.
Absolutely. We have what we have.
Yeah, exactly. And if I was the GM a few weeks ago, I'd be trying to go after someone that can do that because Seren can't stay on the field. He's got back-to-back suspensions, and Cabezas is hurt. So we've got Eric Alexander or Boniek Garcia playing that role with mixed results. What would I do? What kind of tactics would I do? Well, we've talked about it a little bit, and that's I would go back to who we are at our best, and that's the team that doesn't stop. And we saw that against Atlanta. We saw that against Sporting Kansas City in the Open Cup. I think when they play that way, they can beat anybody. And I truly do believe that because our front three is about as loaded as it gets in the league. And then you've got Tomas Martinez, who I think is really developing well. You look and see how many times people are looking to get the ball to him.
Yep.
And then he gets his head up and, he sees whoever making the run.
Yeah.
I think those four have done really well. What would I do? I would try and get Foyenmayor, the funny mare, to I don't know, to get him work on his decision making. Like his red card, deserved or not, was boneheaded. He shouldn't be making that kind of thing. You've got to work with with people like Cinderos to get him to not make those mistakes. And yeah, I think that at the end of the day, they've got to realize that they've got a very difficult schedule coming up with a lot of games on the road against teams above them. And you got to work with them and tell them that we can do this. We have the ability. We have the talent. It's just mental. Can we stay attacking for this long? I know legs are tired, but you got to do it if we want to be in the postseason.
Absolutely. So next question for you, because we've got just a few minutes before we wrap up your little segment here. Let's switch gears to USOC. What was your impression of the turnout and the atmosphere for the Open Cup semi?
So I actually missed most of that game.
Oh, Derek.
Derek. I know, I'm terrible. But I actually heard it was really quite something. And even though they're closing off the top bowl, that's fine. I saw the quarterfinal Open Cup, and I can't remember what the attendance was, but I remember it not being great. But the atmosphere itself was really quite something. There was competing groups trying to do the wave and stuff, and they were making noise. And I know the reason. They're scoring goals at a ridiculous rate.
Absolutely.
So, and that's what fans want. It energizes them. It's the promise that Owen Coyle made, but Cabrera is delivering some of the time. So
kudos on getting an Owen Coyle reference in there. I just want you to know that. Kudos.
Yeah, I know, right? I wish the turnouts were better. It's really hard to do that sometimes, like on a Wednesday evening, but there needs to be more done. But I'm giving a huge amount of credit to the guys and gals that did show up, because they made some noise, and that's what you want.
Absolutely. So with that being said, one question, and I may ask another one depending on time. So what does the U.S. Open Cup final mean to you, and how important is it to you? Those two things go hand in hand. And then I got one more question depending on your answer to that.
Okay. It's really weird, because for growing up with the Dominic Kinnear era, we have never prioritized Open Cup, and finally we're in a position where it's important, or we can even ask this question, which is, it feels a little funny. I think you've got to do it. I hear the phrase on Twitter all the time, U.S. Open Cup or bust now for the Dynamo. And I think that there's really something to that, because there is a huge possibility the Dynamo do not make the playoffs. And if they don't, the U.S. Open Cup is a great consolation prize.
Absolutely.
It's silverware. It's tangible.
Okay. Actually, with that, we're going to let you go, Derek. We're going to try to get Jay Adelberger in here in a minute, and we're going to go ahead and go to break for just a couple of minutes. Derek, again, thank you for for letting us reach out to you and coming on the show via phone. We appreciate it. We know you're a busy guy. You got games to go play and practices to go do. So where can they find you? How can they read your brilliant articles? All that good stuff.
Well, I am Gribbs on Dynamo Theory, and you can find me on Twitter at bstowers410. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I don't know my own Twitter, so I don't tweet at me myself that often, but I'm pretty sure that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Fantastic. Well, again, Derek, thank you very much. We do really, really appreciate it. We'll get you back on some point later on this season, definitely for sure. And keep up the good work over at Dynamo Theory. We really do. We enjoy what you guys are doing over there, and just keep it up. We want to see you guys continue to grow.
Hey, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to coming on next time.
Yes, sir. Have a good one, man.
All right, man. Take care.
And, we're going to go ahead and go to break just for a couple minutes. And then, Jay, if you are listening and or watching, you can go ahead and call in now, and we'll get you on so we can just make sure audio is good.
So I just want to make a quick shout out to Tyler C., Jose Torres, Brian Walter, I Like Cinnabon, and Scrooston Dude.
I Like Cinnabon. Yes. Sorry, I just had to call that out. It's fantastic.
as well as Skirsten Dude, who is a new viewer, new subscriber, new viewer, and he's right now active on the chat.
Yo, guys.
And
Whoa.
he actually has a question for us, and he says, "What players have impressed you the most this season?"
We will get to that at the end of the show, and it mostly because we need to go to break now so we can get Jay on. I will answer that question as soon as we get back from break. And also, I should note, Jay is coming on to talk a little bit of Open Cup as well. So just be aware that's what we're going to talk about when we get back. We're going to break, though. We need to break. I need to go to the bathroom. Hurry up and get us on break. And we're back. You're listening to Generation Orange, a Houston professional soccer internet show. Airs every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central on YouTube. And we're absolutely honored to have a member of the Dynamo sales team join us tonight to answer some questions for us and help us do the one thing we're trying to really get across tonight, which is the hype the Open Cup final and give people reason to come on out. So first of all, we want to welcome Jay Adelberg onto our show. So Jay, welcome.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we are probably more excited to have you than you realize. We really are.
It's my witty Twitter repartee, isn't it?
That is definitely not it. It's probably the in-person conversations we have where you actually are witty. It's not on Twitter, though. No, I'm just kidding. You're fantastic. Make sure he's going to give out his Twitter handle later, so make sure you follow him. He is a great Twitter follow, and he is one of the most honest sales reps I think I've ever seen or talked to in general. And as a fan, it always makes me feel better about the situation when somebody who is in the organization, even as a salesperson, is openly discussing things and not doesn't shy away from necessarily taboo subjects, if you will. With that being said, I'm going to avoid doing those on the air because I don't want to do that to you, Jay. But with that being said, I've got a few questions that I've lined up for you. So I'm going to set them up, and then I want you to knock the home run out of the park. So first one.
All right.
First question. We've talked about this on Twitter, and I need to set this up. We've talked about this on Twitter. You and I have talked about this in person, that there are a number of season ticket holders, X and otherwise, that have had complaints related to various things. Some of them that you guys maybe can help with, some of them you guys probably can't help with. But one of the big ones that I've heard repeatedly over and over is that their sales rep, they don't know who they are, they haven't reached out to them, they don't know who to call, et cetera, et cetera. So really, to start with, what are you guys as a sales department, and you specifically as a sales rep, or what are the reps in general doing to combat that, to counter that? Knowing like I do how great my ticket rep is, and knowing how great you are as a ticket rep, and some of the other ticket reps, how good they are, what are you guys trying to do to counter that perception that somehow has formed that ticket reps don't generally quote unquote take care of their season ticket holders? Which I know that's not a true statement, but that's kind of the perception that has started to creep up and started to become a more public perception. So what are you guys doing about that?
Sure. Well, so, first, I just want to make sure that everyone, everyone's listening. I'm sure you guys know this, but maybe listeners may not know this, that my job as a sales rep is different than the job of a service rep. So while I would sell someone a season ticket, at that point, I'm no longer that person's rep. Then that goes to the service department, and we have a dedicated team of service reps, and their sole job is to make sure that season ticket holders are happy, serviced, and get the things that they want in a timely manner. So I have been with the organization for 3 years, and I think that the biggest problem that we've had, which I think is the biggest problem in general with any ticket sales department in any sports team, and the Dynamo are certainly not exempt from this. They're the same as anyone else, is that there's a lot of turnover in this gig. Yeah. And that leads to inconsistency. And so for me to be at one organization for 3 years, I'm like a unicorn. All right. Because most people who work in sales and service and sports are fresh out of college, young, finding themselves. It could be their first or second significant job in the workplace. And that lends itself to people coming and going at a pretty high rate. I am older and this is my second industry that I've been in. I spent 15 years in the music biz before I got into soccer full time. And so I'm approaching work from a different standpoint and looking for roots and stability. And so I think that's one factor that I think should be kept in mind, is that the turnover does no one any favors. And we've had some inconsistency in management as well. I think that there was, when I first got to the team, I can't say that I actually knew that much about what was going on in service my first year. Mm-hmm. In 2017, I think that in general, the idea of the level of output that reps and sales and service reps should be doing in terms of the amount of touch points and outreach, it suffered. It suffered very badly. And it was a bummer to see that happen. And I think that we had to hit bottom before we got back up.
But I also believe that we are definitely back on an upswing. I know it's funny because you said it seems like it's creeping into the public perception. I think that that's not necessarily true. I think that there are a few loud voices that are being heard that are giving a disproportionate view of what's going on. Because I think that from what I can see from the inside, there is much more emphasis on the service team doing their jobs and being proactive about reaching out to their accounts and to be there. Is it 100% there yet? No, definitely not. Nothing is, I mean, even on my side of things. But I think that the new management that they have in service and a few of the folks that they put over there, I know they care a lot. And I think that in general, as the months go on, my hope is that people will see what I see, which is that I think that there's an effort towards improvement on that side.
Absolutely. And that's why I said and really keyed on the term perception, because I agree with you. I don't think that's a factual thing that's going on. I do think that, like you said, there's a vocal minority that are definitely squeaky wheels at this point. And I think it puts a bad light in general on both this, and unfortunately for you, the sales and service department get lumped together in fans and season ticket holders' minds, whether that's fair or not. And as a result, that perception carries over to the sales department, and that it's definitely a struggle to hear what some fans have said, and most of them, I will give you guys credit, and this goes to the service and the sales department. Most of the complaints that I have heard have been centered around seasons 2, 3, 4 seasons ago, not necessarily this season or even the bulk of last season. So with that being said, there's definitely an improvement happening and definitely things are being done. And I just wanted to make sure we addressed that, make sure we kind of dealt with the elephant in the room, if you will. So next question for you. With the Open Cup final, a month and a half away roughly, what steps are you guys as a sales department taking right now specifically to promote the Open Cup final and to bring, hopefully, some new fans in, and at the same time to try to maybe recoup some of those ex-fans that used to come out to the game, to matches?
Sure. There's two parts there, and I'd like to, at some point, after we talk about the U.S. Open Cup, if time permits, talk a little bit about that ex-fan idea that you just put out there.
Absolutely.
So, but as for U.S. Cup, so we are indeed a month and a half out. All of the sales reps, as of today, are armed with any kind of official collateral that we need to send to our books of business to use on our social media platforms to help garner interest for the U.S. Open Cup. I can tell you for a fact that everyone, pretty much without exception, is very excited about the U.S. Open Cup. So a lot of times, a rep's personal excitement about something is going to certainly affect the way he or she does their job.
Absolutely.
And there's no doubt that we are all pretty darn stoked and by the way, I'm not sure what kind of what level of language I'm allowed to use on the show there, so I went super G on that one.
You were, as a guest, you were free to use whatever language you want. I'll say that.
Fantastic. All right. So we're personally very, very excited about the game. We have also, there's a really exciting, this week right now, it's members presale for the U.S. Open Cup. We're going to go public to the general public starting next week. But we also, ahead of the presale, have a pretty awesome bundle available for folks who want to bundle up for one low price, the U.S. Open Cup final and the Texas Derby next week against FC Dallas.
Nice.
So for $35, you can get an upper sideline seat to both.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
So from where I'm sitting, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
So we've been incentivized with the collateral we need, a good deal to offer. As of next week, we'll have individual pricing that we can go to our clients with, and the excitement level is high, which is the best part about it.
Absolutely. And so here's the question of the hour: how can non-season ticket holders reach out specifically to the sales office to purchase tickets for the Open Cup final? Now, I know that's not going to happen until next week, but I want to set the stage and, like I said, set you up for that home run. So How do they?
Absolutely.
First of all, let's make it easy, Jay. How do they get a hold of you or the sales department specifically? And that can be phone number, that can be email, whatever you want to give out on air.
Sure. Well, for me personally, my office line is 713-276-7529. It's relatively easy to remember because the main line is the 713-276-GOAL.
Mm-hmm.
So it's every number is a variation of that. So I'm at 7529 is my extension on that.
Excellent.
And what I really, for this game, for any game, what I can't really stress enough is when you see the salespeople at the stadium, when you see us walking around and the amount of information and value and savings and service that you can get by knowing somebody in the sales office. And when I say knowing someone, I mean someone like myself who, whether it's a group or you only want to come to a couple games a year, or you're interested in a structured mini-season plan, or you're interested in season tickets, whatever it is, I can't stress enough how much it pays to know a sales rep in the office. I am not the kind who will, I don't want to burn your phone up if you're not interested. I'm real lucky after 3 years there. I have a wonderful book of business of people that I work with over and over again, and I don't have to make a terrible amount of cold calls. And I also, if someone is a jerk, someone else in the office can take them. I don't need that. No, I mean, for real.
Absolutely.
That's a wonderful
completely
luxury.
understand that. Yeah.
It's a wonderful luxury to have, and I do recognize that I'm in a luxurious position. But when you see, if you're looking to save money and get better seats and know about deals on the front end, when you see a salesperson walk around the stadium, by all means, say hello, ask for a business card. Just asking for business cards doesn't obligate you to call them or contact them, but it certainly gives you an opportunity to find out about all the things you want to know on the front end.
Absolutely. So along the same lines, and you didn't really bring this up, but I'm going to bring it up, and it wasn't a question I was planning to ask you, but you kind of helped me get to it. Why is it important for casual fans who aren't season ticket holders? Why is it important for them to connect with a sales rep instead of going through, say, the StubHub secondary market, or or buying from Joe Schmo, out in front of the stadium a few hours in advance, or even from the ticket window a few hours in advance? What is it that you guys, as sales reps and a sales team, what is it that you guys can provide them that makes it worth their effort to reach out to you guys?
Well, certainly, I think that all of us want every guest, whether you are coming to your first game or you're a season ticket holder in our stadium, to feel like they're part of the Forever Orange family. And so having that connect, just that personal interaction there, I think can go a long way. I think that our reps that I work with in the sales office are all great guys and ladies. I think that they have the best interest in the experience of our customers and our clients in mind, and want our fans to want to come back. And without having an interaction with them, we can exert basically helping create an experience that's going to make someone want to come back. I don't know if you guys have seen about, you're familiar with the idea of the rally tunnel, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I've been in charge of that for 2 seasons now going, and it's the kind of thing where I sometimes, if I have a casual customer who's maybe coming for the first time with their kids, that kind of thing, I will very frequently say, hey, do you think your kids would enjoy high-fiving the players on the way down to the field?
Absolutely.
And if the answer to that question is yes, I will say, well, listen, here's where you're going to meet me at what time, and I'm going to make sure that you guys have a great time.
Absolutely.
This may be a customer who is spending very little money with me, but I know that by providing that type of experience, that greatly increases the chances that they're going to want to come back another time, and is going to put the idea in their mind of wanting to come back multiple times.
Absolutely.
Hey, we had the greatest time ever. It was a fun game. The atmosphere was awesome. My son loved the rally tunnel. My daughter loves this, that, whatever it may be. What else? What do you guys have? When's the next game? Do you guys do mini plans? Can I bring my church group out? Whatever it may be, that's how those conversations get started, and that's how you build a fan base that's going to be dedicated and that is going to be emotionally invested in the experience and the team.
You kind of hit the nail on the head. It's about building the relationship first, as much as it is about building that experience. You know, you have to have the experience helps to reinforce the relationship by having that personal touch. It is a relationship. I mean, it really is, and you become the key point for them until they become a season ticket member, and even after that point, it's you become essentially the face of the franchise from a sales perspective, if you will. But
and just real quick on that line. So because I came from the music industry and I had no sales experience whatsoever before I got into soccer sales. So I came from a business that was very schmoozy. That's what the music business is. And I am honestly uncomfortable by things that have to do too heavily with money. That's just not my comfort zone. I'm not a salesy sales guy. I never have been. I never will be. And it took me a little while to learn how to be myself, but also have a selling conversation with people that didn't make me feel gross.
Absolutely.
And so relationship-based selling to me is the absolute, there is no other way to do it. There is no sales training that can convince me that there is another way to do it. I work with a lot of youth soccer groups, and I tell every youth soccer group I work with, the top of the equation is the kids' experience. Everything else underneath it will take care of itself as long as we all remember that the number one priority here is that the kids have a great experience at the Dynamo. And that saves me from having to be a jerk salesman all the time, because that's not where I'm going to be able to do good business.
Absolutely.
I'm going to do good business when I'm going out and making sure that every one of those kids floats home on a cloud.
Yep, absolutely. So you mentioned earlier, you wanted to kind of touch back on the ex-season ticket holder thing, and so I'm going to give you an opportunity to do that, and you still got a few minutes left. But I'm going to go ahead and throw the ball your way and let you do what you're going to do with it. So go for it, buddy.
Fantastic. So one of the things that I see on Twitter the most, that I take the most umbrage with, and I can't really talk about this too much on social media because it becomes confrontational. I am, whether I like it or not, representing the organization. Just on Twitter, it says that all my lousy opinions are my own, but in a lot of ways, the things I say are going to be a reflection on the organization. So I try, especially online, to be diplomatic, to be fair. It's hard sometimes when people are running the organization down. Your impulse is to defend it, sometimes I have to watch myself. But the idea that the way to react to an organization that is struggling is to not show up for the games really chaps my ass to no end. I should preface this by saying I was a season ticket holder at 2 other MLS clubs before I got to Houston. I watched, as a season ticket holder, the Los Angeles Galaxy beat the Houston Dynamo for the MLS Cup in 2011 and in 2012, and then spent 3 years as a Chicago Fire season ticket holder watching them struggle to stay out of the basement.
Absolutely.
And so I've seen it all.
Yeah.
I've seen the best and I've seen the worst.
So have we. Just so it's clear. So have we.
Of course. And my wife, when we were in Chicago, asked me a few times, well, why do we renew these season tickets? Why do we keep going if it's so miserable? And I said, because we support soccer, we support Major League Soccer, we work in this town and live in this town, and this is the only game in town. So we're invested in it because that's what good fans do. Anyone can support a team that's winning. That's easy. The true test of your temerity is your testicular fortitude, as Mick Foley would say, is your support when things are bad.
Absolutely.
And the key is, I have this thing that I call the circle of suck. And the key to the ending the circle of suck is that everyone has to make a conscious decision that they want to get out of it. And part of the circle of suck is fans are upset at the team for they don't win, or they're not spending enough money on the players, or they don't like this or that or whatever, and they stop going. So my question is, if you're a star player and you are considering a move to another team, and you know that Houston's a decent town, but you see them play a division rival with playoffs on the line and the stadium is half empty, you going to sign with that team? Is that going to make you want to go? Or knowing that the team has a rabid fan base that shows up game in and game out, no matter what the result is, or is that going to make you want to go to that town? Or if you're the owner of a team and your team is playing your biggest rival and the stadium is half empty, is that going to make you want to invest money in your team? Now, every single one of those factors is part of the circle of suck. It's the fan, it's the owner, it's the player. Every one of someone in that circle of suck has to make the decision to get off the circle, you know?
Absolutely.
And the owners and the players are the hardest to get off that circle of suck sometimes. So sometimes you have to look to the fans. And I've seen a lot of, like, you know, I understand that Portland is the gold standard, and it bugs the shit out of me that Portland is the gold standard, because sometimes Mr. Paulson says some things online that make me want to, you know, makes your blood boil. You're like, that guy, But those fans show up in Portland whether they are in first place or last place.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
And so it's one of those things where there's no circle of suck there, because the fans are doing their part. Now, that means if the fans do their part, the owner and the players have to do theirs. Good players have to be willing to come there, and that happens. And the owner has to be willing to invest in good players, and that happens, right? So everyone's working in harmony and in concert with one another. But that's the circle of suck. It's three elements that need to work in concert with each other. So I know it's painful. I've continued to go to – I went for 3 full seasons to Chicago Fire games knowing that it was a futile effort on the pitch all 3 years in a row. But I kept going because that's what you do.
Absolutely.
You know? So
no, go ahead, Jay.
So that's it. That's my whole tirade. I'm off the soapbox.
Okay.
That was
actually
that was basically, and I'm not even pointing fingers or blaming. I'm just saying, from one guy, that is my opinion on how we can make things better. We got to get up, make a conscious decision to take ourselves off the circle of suck.
Absolutely. No, and it makes a lot of sense, and I think that is something that the fan base in general probably needs to hear more often. That, you know, you may feel powerless, but, you know, by removing your, you know, financial support of the team, you're not making the situation any better. You're not highlighting the problems. All you're doing is removing yourself. You know, it's like if you're a stakeholder in a company. If you remove your stake in the company, you no longer have any say in how that company's run.
Absolutely.
So
if you don't come to the stadium, if you're not coming there, why should we listen to you?
Absolutely.
You know.
So
Now, at the same time, I think we should be listening to everybody, but I can understand the point of view that if you're not currently going to games, you have no voice. I understand that.
Absolutely. So let me say this, and I've said this before on air, and I want to say it again because I think there's a certain contingency of our listeners that needs to hear this and needs to hear it very clearly. Houston is by no means guaranteed a MLS soccer club in the future. It is a privilege, not a right, to have an MLS soccer club in our city. Please don't forget that. So, you know, Jay kind of hit the nail on the head. Go out and support soccer, even if you're not going to necessarily specifically support the Houston Dynamo because you disagree with how they're running the organization. Go support soccer in Houston. Go support soccer in MLS in this country. Go support soccer across, you know, in general, just growing as a sport. Because that's how you grow and how you deal with ownership. You build the sport to a point that they can't avoid it any longer, that they have to spend money in order to keep growing and keep up with the rest of the league. And so I wanted to say that, Jay, because you got me fired up too. So just so you know, you did a good job. So last thing I want to say, Edson, did you have anything?
It was just a little concern from one of our viewers. I wanted to see if hopefully Jay can
go ahead, read it off.
So Henry Maltez asked, it says, he feels that sometimes if you buy season tickets or partial season tickets, kind of makes you miss out on beer garden scarves or other promo things that the team offers for individual tickets.
Yeah, so essentially, Jay, what the question is how do they get the same experience that a sales rep is giving an individual ticket purchaser from their season ticket rep?
I would say, and this is for me personally, I have never had a client who was either a season ticket holder or a partial plan season ticket holder who asks me about one of those items where I haven't been able to deliver it.
That makes total sense. So you got to ask. Essentially what Jay is saying is you have to ask. Find out who your ticket rep is if you don't know, and ask, because if you don't ask, you never know. And finally, and we've got just a couple minutes, Jay, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes for a promo. Well, kind of. Actually, I'm going to ask this question, then I'm going to give you 2 minutes for a promo. So, do we know yet when the projected renewal timeline for 2019 season tickets is?
Yeah, it's going to be soon. So I believe that they will start to launch renewals certainly before the end of this month.
Yeah.
And then my guess is they will give that, we like to give the current season ticket holders ample time to renew before any of those seats potentially go up for sale for other folks.
Absolutely.
So they will, my guess is by the end of this month, renewals will begin sometime in maybe closer to the end of the season. New season tickets will be also available. And then I believe usually the deadline is right around the new year, where if you haven't renewed your current season tickets, then those seats then go back on the market.
Gotcha. Makes total sense. So with that being said, you got 2 minutes for a promo. Sell me on why I need season tickets.
Well, I think that as an organization, Forever Orange is something that we are, as a culture, really going to start taking seriously. And we want people to really feel that when you go Forever Orange, when you become a Forever Orange member, that you are part of the family. I know that my fellow sales reps and I and our service rep, it's something that rebuilding the culture of the Dynamo and the Dash, and let's not forget the Dash, is something that is in the forefront of our minds. We don't want anymore to have to talk about the glory days of the Dynamo. We want to make the glory days now. If you've ever seen The Office, in the very last episode, Andy Bernard says, I wish that someone would tell you that you were in the good old days when they're still happening. And that's what we want. We want to make good old days happening right now. So I think that you will see going forward a tremendous amount of effort on the part of the organization to make membership fun, make membership easy, make members feel like they get opportunities and advantages that other people do not get, and they do, and we will continue to compound that and to add experiences and opportunities onto it, that the only way that you can tap into it is by being a Forever Orange member. So that is something that I know the organization is going to take extremely seriously, because your lifeblood is your season ticket base. And we have allowed the lifeblood to leak out of an open vein way too much in the last few years. And so we've sutured that bad boy up, and we're gonna get the heart muscle pumping in the right direction.
Fantastic, and you didn't even throw a brother in there, which is pretty impressive, Jay. I'm kind of surprised with you there.
Oh yeah,
there we go.
No, even when I was in the wrestling business, I was never a brother kind of guy. That was never in my promos.
You didn't you didn't take your vitamins and say your prayers.
No, that was just not that. I was, it's funny. I don't think I wrestled probably for a year and a half, maybe 2 matches as a babyface, and believe it or not, was a heel the rest of the time.
Oh, I believe it, Jay. I believe it.
So no vitamins, no prayers, nothing like that. It was really more of a mixture of insults in English and Spanish.
Oh, we'll have to talk about your wrestling days now. I've got some curious questions to ask. With that being said, we got to cut you off. Unfortunately, your promo time has ended. So real quick, where can they find you on Twitter? Where can they find you on social media? And how can they get a hold of you again via phone if they want to buy tickets for Open Cup Final? And reminder again, that starts next week, not now. So if you're a current season ticket holder, reach out to your rep. If you're not a current season ticket holder and you want individual tickets, you can call next week. But what number can they reach you at, Jay?
They can still call me now. I'll just give them all the details.
There you go.
713-276-7529 is the phone. My email, the letter J, and my last name, which is Adelberg. It's going to look like Jadalberg at HoustonDynamo.com is the email address. You can find me at Twitter at Jay Adelberg, spelled out though, Jay Adelberg, at Jay Adelberg. And if you want to see pictures of all of the fine street art that Houston has to offer and my occasional forays into tacos and my French bulldog, you can find me on Instagram at JayForklift, JayForklift.
I'm about to give you a follow. Well, Jay, thank you very much for coming on. We appreciate it. Really do appreciate your point of view and your perspective. It's definitely a sorely needed perspective that I hope gets a lot more public coverage as the days wear on here. And you know what? Let's go Dynamo. We got a month and a half to build this up. I hope the fans join in and support this team and get out. And I hope if nothing else, we fill that stadium and it's so rocking that we send Philly home crying with their tail between their legs at the end of the match. With that said, Jay, seriously, thanks again, and have a good one, my friend.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
For sure. Thank you, Jay. So we're going to go ahead and go to break. And when we come back, we're going to have Jesus on. Hopefully Jesus is either listening or if he tried to call in, hopefully he calls back again because we went a little long on that, but Jay was awesome, so we had to. So hopefully Jesus calls back. Jesus, I'm telling you right now, when you hear this, go ahead and call. And with that said, we're going to break. So we'll be back in a minute. Speak of the devil.
A real clockwork soldier.
Generation Orange in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And we're back. You're listening to Generation Orange, a Houston professional soccer internet show, and eventually at some point a podcast as well. If you are tuned in with us on YouTube right now, or even if you watch us later in syndication on YouTube, do us a favor and press that button that says like. It's the little thumbs up. That does us a huge favor and moves us a little higher in pecking order of videos. And also do us a favor and subscribe if you are not a current subscriber. Definitely subscribe so you guys can get some notifications when we go live. And then lastly, go ahead and share out the video, share out the stream for us, and share it with your friends, with your family. Share it on social media, share it in text messages. Print up flyers. I don't care what you do, just share it. We just we want this to grow. And we want it to grow because really, honestly, it gives us opportunities to really to bring more of you guys into the fold and get your opinions and your voices out there. I know this week has been a bit heavy on the guest interviews and talk, and I promise that will not be every week. But this week we just lined everything up perfect, and it's going to kind of take up pretty much the whole show. But that's okay. With that being said, boy, I just really put a downer on bringing Jesus on, didn't I? With that being said, we've got Jesus Acevedo joining us now. Jesus writes for Pro Soccer USA and MLSsoccer.com, which occasionally those articles that he writes will end up on HoustonDynamo.com. He does not write for the Houston Dynamo, regardless of what I may have said on Twitter. My fault, y'all. But with that said, Jesus, first of all, welcome again. Thank you for coming back. We do appreciate it. I'm glad we didn't drive you off talking about the ref and the post-match referee fun that you endured over there that match.
No, thank you for having me back. And it's funny, I was on after that match because following home match after that was even more troublesome than the previous one, I guess, fans would say, with the ref situation and during the SKC match, which how that match played out, I didn't have time to really submit questions to the ref like I had done in the Philadelphia Union.
Yeah,
but in hindsight, I should have.
For the SKC match, the problem was that happened in basically the last minute and a half of the match. I mean, it was so short a turnaround from that to the end of the match, that I completely understand how you weren't really able to get questions turned around and handed over to him. Just so you know, I mean, we were asking about it, but I also totally understand that there's a time thing too, and sometimes when those decisions come at the very end of a match, it can be very difficult to get your questions over. But we have just a few questions for you, Jesus, and these questions are interesting. When I was coming up with them, I really didn't kind of intend them to go the way they went, but then they went that way, and I was like, oh, this is going to be good. So first question for you, Jesus. What was your impression? Because I asked this to Derek, but what was your impression of the turnout and atmosphere for the Open Cup semifinal?
I actually had to skip covering the U.S. Open Cup semifinal. I already had some plans that day before the match was scheduled, because for the U.S. Open Cup games, once they advance, they're scheduled on days that aren't already there. So
absolutely,
it was actually my first game watching it on TV. I guess I'll say on the stream, and I started watching it late, like most people that watch it on the streams because the stream started late. So I don't know how it was in person, but I can tell from the watching it, it was loud as far as the people that were there. They were felt, their passion was felt, especially as they got into overtime. And as I was reading through Twitter throughout the game, it seems like the fans who got tickets just kept on moving more closer and closer to the stadium. But it definitely showed that, two things. One, I feel like fans are, obviously, I don't need to say that there's less fans coming to the games, and especially, not just for MLS games, but I mean, U.S. Open Cup games, the overall fan who's just a little soccer fan doesn't really know what the U.S. Open Cup is, so they may confuse it for an MLS match, so there's some education that needs to go there so that way they know. And I think that's part of, I'm not sure if Jay talked about this, but when they're selling this U.S. Open Cup final, perhaps they have to tell those fans that, hey, this isn't an MLS game, this is another tournament, but they're in the final. It's still final no matter which way you look at it. So back to your original question, I think the atmosphere was good for the crowd that was there. And I think especially for how the game turned out, those lucky few that were there witnessed a truly remarkable game. I mean, obviously the Dynamo let it go, continued to go late, that has been their MO this whole season, especially on the road. But, I think it was, I'm not sure, I think it was Josh Duplantis. He had a great tweet, Josh, who used to have a podcast, The Peel. he said, I was able to knock off a bucket list item without ever thinking it was going to be a bucket list item. And his bucket list item was watching the Dynamo win a penalty shootout at BBA Copper Stadium.
Absolutely.
And so I was just saying, for those that were there, I think they were able to experience a great game. A lot of heartbreak, a lot of turmoil, a lot of exciting game. They were down, they were up, and so, yeah, that's what I said about the atmosphere. It was, I guess I picked a good game to not go to and a bad game to not go to, because I think it would have been a crazy game to try and write. I know for the LAFC game, the last LAFC game when Dynamo scored 2 goals in injury time, I already had my whole story done. Of course, Dynamo scored, so I had to scratch all that and start over. So it would have been the same thing with this game. I don't know what is it about Dynamo and LAFC. Every time they meet, they get into these crazy games.
So I'm going to skip our second question, knowing that you weren't there. That changes that question dramatically. But next question. As a media member, what do you look at to determine whether something Dynamo-related is worth covering?
I will touch up on your second question. Your second question you were going to ask me was if there were a lot more Spanish media press. And now I did watch the press conference from after the game, and I did notice, because I follow a lot of the Spanish media, I did see a lot more Spanish media that were there present. And I would say, yes, I think one of the reasons was because LAFC was here, because Carlos Vela was here, not so much more that they were going to cover U.S. Open Cup semifinal. And let's just be honest.
Absolutely.
There's been plenty of Wednesday games where I've been there and there's no Spanish media. Even during Saturday or Friday or Sunday games, there's not as much Spanish media besides the usual Spanish media that is always there. Now, on to your third question. You were asking me, what do I determine something that is related to worth covering? Something you have to take into account is that there is no full-time Dynamo beat writer right now at the present time. Once the Chronicle let go of Corey was the only one that was truly, his job was to cover the Dynamo. That was his day job. So everybody else that covers the Dynamo, they're only doing it on a freelance basis, like I am, or they're just doing it on their own because they want to. Edson, he goes to cover the games from press perspective, and he's not getting paid for that. So we have to take that into account. There's many stories, more stories that have transpired throughout the season that I wish I could write, but we're having a day job, time doesn't allow. And I think one of the reasons why the Chronicle let go of Corey was because maybe they looked at the numbers and they saw that not as many people were clicking on his stories, and the stories weren't getting as many hits. So it's tough. There's many stories that I would like to cover. There's many stories that come across my way that I know about, but because having a full-time job and having be an adult, I can't spend as much time as I would like to covering the Dynamo.
Absolutely. This is a thankless and a profitless job. If anybody is curious, there's no money in it whatsoever. With that being said, you kind of hit on it a little bit, but I want to dive into it a little deeper. So Dynamo fans have complained, and this has been a long-standing complaint, about the general lack of local media coverage of the team. And you kind of hit the nail on the head, mentioning Corey. Corey covered the Dynamo for the Chronicle full-time, and then for whatever reason, and only really honestly the Chronicle and Corey know the answer to that, but we assume it was mostly due to a lack of hits on the site and a lack of hits on his articles online, showing the support for soccer in general. But the question I have for you is, as a media guy who's a local media guy, as well as kind of a national media guy because you do MLSsoccer.com, what do you think fans can do to help pressure local media to be more engaged with the team? Or on the flip side of that, if you think that maybe the team needs to be more engaged with the local media, what can fans do to pressure the team to be more engaged with local media?
Well, I think, the great thing about living in today's age is social media. Anybody can just reach out to their sportscaster on their favorite channel or, and just say, hey, I saw that you didn't mention the Dynamo in today's newscast or what have you. And, pretty much call them out. That's all you can really do at this point. But whether they respond to you or not, whether they pay attention to you or not, that's a whole different story. It's also I know Dynamo PR, they do a good job. They send all the interviews that they do at practice, they send them out to all the media, and I get them. But then also the thing is, if there's no media at practice, they're only going to send out the answers that they themselves ask, because there's no media there asking questions at practice.
Absolutely.
So that kind of limits what you can use. So maybe once they send out these media videos from the practice, it's only questions that the Dynamo PR asks the players and the coach, and maybe it's an answer or a statement that the sportscasters can use or the sports radio stations can use. So there's also that, if having media go to the practice games. Now, I would say you can tell when there's a big game coming up against a good team, because back when I was able to go to most of the Dynamo practices, whenever a big team was coming in, you would see more media at those practices when there was a big game coming up, especially during the playoffs, and especially in the early part of the season. That's when you see most of the media. Before the first game, you'll see most of the media, but obviously that's when they have to get their clips, they have to get their sound bites, because the season is starting, so it's fresh, it's new. But then after the season starts, there's a big drop-off. And that drop-off happens, game by game, month by month, until, of course, playoffs come around and the team is in the playoffs, then it ratchets it back up again. But as far as what fans can do is they can just, like I said, just call out their sportscasters, sports stations, I mean, there's really there's only two sports stations that cover, that give a lot of time to soccer, which is ESPN 97.5 with Glenn Davis, Soccer Matters, and I know Monday's Kicking It, if I'm not mistaken, Sports Radio 610. So besides that, that's it. That's all the soccer fans really have as far as here local Houston, because most of the media, most of the national media guys, they don't really pay attention to the Houston Dynamo, or if they do, it would usually be a small blurb that they're talking about the Houston Dynamo or Houston in general. Even Dallas, I would say they don't get as much love from the national media. But I guess as being from Houston, as I'm sure you guys know, the national media really doesn't pay any attention to Houston sports unless we're in the finals.
Absolutely. You were not wrong. Actually, I don't have any other questions.
I actually just want to make mention of what he was talking about in regards to the local media. I think the Dynamo fan base, I have to applaud them for the most part. I have seen on Twitter where they have called out our local news channels when they do cover the Dynamo and they get something wrong, or they totally forget to, or people like random Twitter users that talk about Houston sports and they mention the Astros, they mention the Rockets, they mention the Texans, but completely forget about the Dynamo. And I've seen a lot of people, hey, well, why aren't you mentioning the Dynamo at all? Aren't they a Houston sports team?
Yeah.
Kind of
it's, I think there's something to be said for that we as a fan base have to do work to help the Dynamo get that local media coverage that they really need to continue to expand and to grow into that real casual market. And the way we do that is by retweeting those things that we see when somebody's calling somebody out, in relation to media coverage, or, if you see it, go ahead and call it out and be willing to engage. And it doesn't have to just be on Twitter. It can be on Facebook. Trust me, the news agencies, they are watching Facebook as much as they are Twitter right now. On Instagram, they're always, those reporters are always Instagramming. Those anchors are always Instagramming whenever they can. Throw a comment on there and say, hey, no love for the Dynamo. And it's going to be hard to, I think, break into the national media until we can really get the local media coverage to show that this is a fan base and this is a growing fan base, that, maybe we don't have the explosive growth of an Atlanta or an LAFC, but we're going to be a fan base that's going to stick around. We're not going anywhere. And, it starts and it ends with us. I think Jay kind of hit the nail on the head when he said it's about the circle of suck. We can complain about the Chronicle, getting rid of Corey, and the Chronicle not covering the Dynamo, and news stations not covering the Dynamo. But if we're not willing to do the work to try to not force them, but pressure them to cover the Dynamo, then we're just feeding into that well of suck, or that ring of suck, that I think is what he called it. And then think about it beyond that. The Chronicle have a paid subscription service. If no Dynamo fans are subscribing to their paid service, then why are they going to write in pay for a Dynamo coverage person? Because there's nobody reading those articles.
Yeah, definitely. I know I have a couple of high school people I went to high school with who are news reporters, not necessarily for sports, but they work for newspapers.
Yeah.
And they have been let go because of that reason, because people aren't willing to spend on a subscription service for their online versions of the articles.
Absolutely.
And I think at the end, this was all about the fact that there weren't enough clicks in his articles and stuff talking about the Dynamo to necessarily warrant keeping Corey. And it's sad to put it that way, but in the end, we always talk about it. Money talks.
Money absolutely talks. Jesus,
Here's another point.
Go ahead, Jesus.
Here's another point. I'm sure you guys know about the site, the Athletic.
I was about to.
They have a whole bunch. Yeah, some of their cities where it's at, they have soccer coverage, and there's an Athletic Houston, but there's no soccer coverage. Now I'm sure they know why there's no. They haven't hired someone to cover soccer. They know that the clicks aren't there. They know that it's just going to be paying somebody to have articles under, but nobody's going to subscribe from Houston to read those soccer articles. I know, for example, Minnesota has one. I'm sure Seattle has one. I think Chicago has one, if I'm not mistaken. So there's some cities, so I guess it goes more to, I think it's the fans maybe aren't, willing to pay for service. And because they're not willing to pay for service, these media publications, they're not going to spend that money knowing that nobody's going to click on those articles.
Absolutely. It makes complete sense. And it's all about, the fan perspective and changing that perception that, there are things that, the average fan, from my engagement with many of them, both, in person and online, whether it's on Twitter, the Dynamo Discord, or even on Facebook, many of them feel like, that they don't have any power. They're powerless. They're helpless to make things better. And I think in reality, it's not that they're helpless. It's just that what needs to be done are things that aren't the most comfortable things to do. And, I just want to make sure that as a fan base that, when possible, while we still want to get the voice out there of the fan, we also want to make sure that fans are educated and that they understand there are things they can do, even if it's not the most comfortable thing to do, even if it's not necessarily what they want to do. It can make a huge impact. It can make a big impact. And I think one of the things is, if we can, if we get enough people subscribing to The Athletic, they're going to find somebody to cover the Dynamo on The Athletic. And I think that would be perfect, honestly. And I think it would put pressure as The Athletic grows and as Houston coverage on The Athletic grew. It would put pressure on the Chronicle to cover because now there's a viable income source there. And so, there's more we can do, and if we're not willing to do it, if we're not willing to put our money where our mouths are, then are we really supporting soccer in the Houston coverage area?
And I think also the Houston Dynamo fan base also needs to go out and look at all the grassroots movement of podcasts, of independent freelance writers, like Jesus.
Look at Vavel, look at Pro Soccer USA, look at The Athletic. Even though they're not writing Dynamo articles, they're writing soccer articles.
Yes.
Go support where you can soccer coverage.
And that includes Hispanics with my friends at Mente Futbolera. They do occasionally write about the Houston Dynamo, and they do a good job with those articles, trying to explain what happened in the game to the Hispanic culture. So if you guys know any Spanish-speaking friends, family, or coworkers that are interested in listening to or knowing what about the Houston Dynamo, that's another alternative.
That's
as
very
well.
Good. Jesus, before we go, is there anything else that you wanted to add to the conversation at large?
No, I know I this will probably change the topic that we're on, but I know a lot of fans are upset at how the season has gone on. But I think fans have to take into account other injuries that the Dynamo have had to deal with, specifically to the back line. And I know that's the point. Edson Ochoa had a good question to Wilmer Cabrera after the U.S. Open Cup semifinal about why the team conceded goals so late. And coach said that it's because they're having to make so many changes to the back line. So the back line isn't in sync as it should be. And if you look at last season, the Houston Dynamo had a pretty solid defensive line. And one of the reasons was they hardly ever made any changes to the back four. Every once in a while they have made changes to the back line. This season, it's been a rotating carousel of defensive, whether it's, Adam playing right back, Andrew getting hurt and having to have Kevin Garcia, which I'm sorry, but I don't think we should see Kevin Garcia anymore. But I understand he's there because he's a body at this point.
Yeah.
So it's tough. But even with injuries, I think it also falls on Matt Jordan. He praises the depth of this team, and I think he needs to put his money where his mouth is and actually prove that this Dynamo has depth, because clearly it doesn't have it on the defensive end. It has it on the offensive end now to some extent, but they need more solid depth on the defensive end. Signing Adam and bringing Alejandro have been a good addition. Jared Watt has started to play a little bit better. Well, after his injury, he's feeling solid, but they still need a couple more good, solid defensive pieces that I feel they need to get younger on the defensive end, and I'm talking about 25 and younger, and I think that's a good reason why they got Alejandro Fuenmayor. He's made rookie mistakes, let's not lie about it, but how did those young players get better than make those mistakes?
Absolutely.
He's going to be a way better player next season whenever he comes back. Same for Adam. So, but that's just something else that I wanted to add.
Well, and okay, I didn't think we were going to dive into this, but I'm gonna say something, and it's going to actually counter what you just said. But look, I am a strong supporter of Matt Jordan, and here's why. There's not a team in MLS that would handle the number of injuries that this team has and still provide the depth to be able to even field a freaking back line. You consider that at one point they had literally every starter along their back line out injured, and then had 3 to 4 backups out injured across the back line. This includes Adam Lundqvist. This includes Andrew Winger. This includes Kevin Garcia. This also includes George Malky, who never came fully back from injury. Yeah. So to say that he didn't have the depth, I think that's a bit short-sighted. The problem is that he had the depth. The problem is that we kept getting injured. And this question does not go to you specifically, but this is something I've been wondering all season, and I think it plays a role. We lost Theron Enns, who was our longtime Dynamo head trainer this season, off-season, to RSL. And I look at it, and I wonder how much of an impact that has had on our injury issues. And yes, age plays a role, but I think you look at a lot of the injuries along the back line, and they are mostly, strains. You look at Cabezas, that was a strain. It started as a strain. You look at, Andrew Winger, it was a strain that he suffered when he went out for a few weeks. Beasley has suffered strains, and so all these things are strains. They're all muscle related, and they're just things as a trainer that you do differently than other trainers. Your process for recovery, your process for rehab is different. And I just wonder if that's playing a larger role than people really understand and give credit for. But again, I go back to the fact that Matt Jordan placed enough depth on this team. We had 6 center backs at one point. We have no less than 5 outside backs right now on the roster, let alone previously. And so to say we don't have the depth, I think, is short-sighted. The problem is we have the depth. It's just everybody was freaking injured.
Well, Sean,
don't get me.
Every team has depth.
Go ahead.
Every team has depth. Every team has depth. I'm talking about quality depth. Every team has depth down this line. Who's the worst team in MLS this season?
No, not Toronto. It's not Toronto. It's hard to say, though, honestly, because there's a lot of parity.
Colorado,
right now.
okay. Colorado, before they got Kellen Costa, even them, they have depth. But
no, Orlando
depth?
City is the worst team in the league right now. Sorry.
Well, I think that they're probably the unluckiest team I've ever seen.
You obviously aren't watching enough Dynamo. No, I'm just kidding. Continue. Go ahead. I'm just giving you a hard time. But
I think, yes, every team has depth. But I guess what I should say is quality depth. Do they have a quality depth? Especially if the Dynamo win the U.S. Open Cup, they're going to go to the CONCACAF Champions. They're really going to have to get more depth. And I think that's one of the things where MLS still needs to become the steps it still needs to become a better league is
Absolutely.
Teams need to have more depth, especially
More
as they
roster
start
slots.
playing more games.
Yep.
Look at some of the teams, look at some of the other leagues across the sea. They play 3 tournaments at a time, including their actual league. So that's where they need more depth, and they have more depth. And I think that's where the Dynamo and the rest of MLS need to catch up. They need to have quality depth. Yes, the Dynamo have depth. Of course they have depth. Every team has depth. But is it quality depth? And I think that's my question. That's why I think Matt Jordan needs to, I think he's had 2 good off seasons. Is it a coincidence that it just happens to be that Wilmer Cabrera has been the coach in the last 2 years? Because before these past 2 years, look at the contracts that Matt Jordan was handing out. Did you like any of those contracts? Did you like Giles Barnes making $750,000 a year? So that's what I'm saying. It's how much was it Matt Jordan and how much it was Cabrera? Now, I think they worked great together these past 2 years, and I think they're adding quality depth now to the team, but I think they still got ways to go.
So on the Giles Barnes note, I'm going to throw something at you. There were 2 teams that were willing to pay him that much money. I'm going to leave it at that. Other than the Dynamo, no less. It was Vancouver and Orlando. With that being said, Jesus, I hate to drop you there because I really feel like you and I could probably keep going with this for a while because I have a completely different perspective on it than you do, and that's okay. It's good to have. It's good to have different opinions. I'm okay with accepting that. Hey, we have different opinions on it, but we will definitely have to get you on to discuss this another time when we have more of a full show available to do so. Because I think there's a valid point there. But I also think that there's a counterpoint that can be made, to kind of, you got a point, but you also have to realize X, Y, Z, but that's something we can discuss later. With that being said, Jesus, where can our listeners find you, and where can they find your articles?
Well, on Twitter, it's Jesus_Acevedo Jr., and you can read all my stuff on Pro Soccer USA, anything that's Dynamo related or Dash related as well. I'm starting to cover the Houston Dash for Pro Soccer USA. So shout out to Pro Soccer USA for allowing me to cover the Dash on top of the Dynamo.
Go support Pro Soccer USA.
Pro Soccer USA, definitely go support them. They do great work. And also, of course, MLS Soccer, most of the things that are Houston Dynamo related are done by me. So that's where everybody can find my articles.
Fantastic. Well, Jesus, again, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate your insight and your thought into some of the different things we talked about, especially related to Spanish media and local media and that sort of thing. I think it's something that fans have been wondering and bringing light to some of that and offering ways that Dynamo fans can be more engaged and more involved. I think it's the next step that we have to take as a fan base to really kind of move in the right direction. But again, with that being said, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for taking time out of your evening. We really appreciate it, man. And really, seriously, we're going to have to get you back on sometime really soon so we can talk more about this Matt Jordan hate you suddenly have out of nowhere. I'm just kidding.
I do not hate Matt Jordan. I just,
I'm going to make sure that Matt. I'm going to take these audio clips and I'm going to send them to Matt.
And I still have to interview him.
No,
I do not hate him. I have to interview him. Right.
Absolutely. No, he's a good guy.
Definitely thank you. No, go ahead. Thank you guys for having me on. And anytime you just let me know, we can definitely debate this among other things.
For sure. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and let Jesus go. And when we come back, we have a very special thing for our listeners that don't know we're doing this. We actually landed a opportunity to talk to AJ De La Garza of the Houston Dynamo and formerly now of the RGV Toros for a match for last night.
RGV legend.
In one match, half a match really. It was 45 minutes. But we had a chance to talk to him. We asked him some questions related to the Toros and his match down there and a couple other things. So you guys are going to want to tune into that. We're going to play that right as soon as we come back from break here in about
3 minutes.
3 minutes, give or take, roughly. Yeah, right around there. And then Edson's going to go right into the RGV Express tonight. We're going to let him have a little time for that, just simply because it's RGV time. We're going to talk RGV. And so just so you guys know, your contributions, your following us, subscribing to us, you being engaged on Twitter, you guys being engaged on YouTube, you subscribing to the YouTube channel, you giving us tips, et cetera, what all this goes towards is these kinds of things, these kinds of opportunities that pop up with AJ, these kinds of opportunities that pop up with Jesus, with Victor, and with Derek, and with Jay Adelberg and Julio. and Andrew Wiebe. I mean, these things are things that you guys have helped create, and you've helped elevate this show to the next level. So keep helping us get there, and keep helping us improve and get to the next level. And hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button, and get this out on Twitter, get this out on social media, get this out on Reddit. We want as many fans watching as possible, and it has nothing to do with hits or likes or views or whatever. We don't care about those things. We really don't. We care about you guys. We care about the Dynamo fan base. We care about the Dynamo as a team, and that's how we improve that. That's how we can build upon that. So there's some other things that are taking place, and we'll talk about those after the RGV Express is gone. But we're going to break. Let's go to break. Right. I need water. I'm thirsty. All right, so AJ, first of all, welcome to Generation Orange. We appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule to answer a few questions we have. And first of all, I just want to let you know that beyond just Francisco, who I know you've been talking to, but us on the show, Edson and myself, and then a lot of our followers, between all of us, you're probably one of our top one Dynamo player. We follow your fan favorite by far, mostly because of your takedown of FC Dallas. That instantly made you the best Dynamo player in our eyes.
Nice. Well, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Anytime whatsoever. So first question, we know that you were down with RGV this past weekend for a match. And just so you're aware, Edson also does a RGV podcast / internet show.
Okay.
So he was super excited to see you down there. And so we were just kind of curious, in regards to the match and being down there, flying out kind of so quickly and then returning back to Houston so quick, what's your takeaway from your time with RGV, that one match? Are you probably going to be back there for a couple more matches? And then also kind of along the same lines, were there any players at RGV from a young player standpoint that stood out to you positively?
Yeah, to answer your first question, I'm not sure exactly what the plan is at this moment. If I'll be going down there or if I'll be playing back with Dynamo. And obviously that's kind of a competitive edge as well. Don't tell your opponents where you're going. But honestly, I don't even know where I'm going at this point. Today was the first day back after the game, so I'm sure the coaches have a lot of other things on their minds, and everyone's trying to wrap their head around this weekend. And to the second question, there's a lot of good talent out there, and you can see it when you play in even open cup games. When you're playing USL teams, that there's talent. Just the difference is the amount of talent, spread throughout the entire roster, or just the consistency of the younger players or inconsistency of them. The thought process of thinking, actually, I can tell a lot. And guys coming from the USL coming to MLS training, they can tell that it's just another level above USL. But there's a lot of young kids who are getting a lot of exposure and experience. So hopefully they can all take it well and continue to progress.
Did you happen to school any of the younger kids in any practice or game day prep? Out of curiosity.
No, I just had one training session, and I remember the warm-ups and on game day. In the first possession game, I was flying around, buzzing around, and actually Todd told me, he's like, "We got 2 more games, 2 more possession games after this." So I was like, "Oh, all right. So you want me to calm down?"
So you could say you were happy to get back on the pitch, huh?
Yeah, I would say that.
So next question, out of curiosity, and you kind of already said this, but I have to ask the question for Dynamo fans that are out there. Does your timeline at this point from the team, if they've given you a timeline, does it include U.S. Open Cup and trying to get back for U.S. Open Cup final? And you can say no, it's okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would hope I'm available in a month and a half. So, who's ever playing at that time, whatever the coaches think is best. But for my timeline from the beginning, I remember day one, fresh out of surgery, my timeline was always they wanted me back at 9 months. So I had a little setback maybe a month ago when I thought I was going to go to RGV, and had a little muscle injury, which set me back 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and still getting my first game in at 9 months and 11 days, I think it was. So it didn't set me back too far, but research shows after 9 months I'm less likely to tear again. I'm a knock on wood now. So
we're knocking for you.
Again. But yeah, I think from the beginning they always wanted me to come back at 9 months. So
makes sense.
I was 9 months and 11 days.
That's on target. 12 days or 11 days after is not too.
Yeah, but I
really
remember.
Bad.
Yeah, but at the beginning, of course, when they say 6 to 9 months, I told them 5.5, 6 months. So it didn't work out like that.
Yeah, but I think you kind of hit the nail on the head too. That if the mark is 9 months for the lower probability of re-injury, then sometimes that little bit extra of a delay may actually work in your favor overall.
Yeah. We'll see how that works.
Nah, it will, man. I got faith in you. So next question. Are you ready to challenge Wenger for that right back position again when you get back?
Man, he's done so well. Only thing I can do is give coaches the option, I guess you can say. So we could use Wenger anywhere on the field, and he'll do very well. So it wouldn't hurt to put him in the attack a little bit and run at some players, but he's done a fantastic job, and whatever I can do for this team to help us try to make a playoff push, I'm going to do it.
So in your coming back, as you were going through your recovery process, you were clearly keeping up with your team because we saw all the tweets about everything going on with the team. How hard was it to watch all of the injuries along the back line in the right back position, especially while you were out trying to recover and trying to get back, and had personally targeted to get back within 6 months and then had your setback? How difficult was that for you as a player, and then also for you as trying to get into recovery and not push yourself too hard?
Yeah, I think it's always difficult watching from afar, watching in the stands, seeing how this year has been playing out, and believing that I could help in some sort of way. It's been hard, but I know they didn't want to rush me back to have something else happen again, So it's obviously been an injury-plagued year for us all over the field. We have 11 games, 12 including the U.S. Open Cup. So we have to step up as a team. No matter what, guys have to kind of suck some things up and fight through some things, and we got to get results. As simple as that.
So, last question: how does it feel to be a transplant Texan? Because you had so much love for LA and Cali before you got moved over here, and now it's purely Houston and Texas love. And I just want you to know we love you as much as you love us, and you love Texas. So. But how's it like to be a transplant here? What have you learned about Texas and Houston in general that you didn't know or didn't realize before coming here?
I would say I learned that it's actually a really good city. It's amazing. There's things to do. There's different parts around the city you can go visit. I don't I said it before in a tweet. You really don't understand Houston until you've lived here, and you can't really appreciate it until you lived here. If they had some better weather, it would probably be a top 5 city. So.
I don't know what you're talking about. Our weather is beautiful if you like to play in saunas 24/7.
Yeah.
But no, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I just appreciate everyone who's welcomed us last year, and giving me time to recover this year as well. So. Everyone's been good to us and our family.
Has anybody mentioned to you, first of all, that your daughter has become the unofficial child mascot of the Dynamo at this point?
Yeah, no, they haven't, but she's crazy. She's getting old, and it's funny whenever I have a Dynamo shirt on. You going to the Dynamo game?
That's awesome.
She's funny.
That's awesome. Well, we don't actually have anything else for you at this point. Like we said, we really appreciate your time. And you know what, man? Forever Orange. And believe us when we say we are rooting for you to get back as strong as ever. And we really hope that it is for the U.S. Open Cup final so you can hoist that trophy with the rest of the team.
Yeah, I hope it's before that, first of all.
Well, I hope it's for Dallas, but that's like 2 weeks away.
Let's
so you get back for that one. You get back for that one. You know what? We'll figure something out. All right, man. Well,
guys. Thanks for having me on.
For sure. Thanks again for joining us.
All right, no problem.
Have a good night, man.
Good night.
All right, bye.
And we're back. Sorry, that was my fault. We were muted. So that was AJ De La Garza, right back of the Houston Dynamo, and hopefully he will reclaim that right back spot when he fully returns, which hopefully will be for Dallas, because that would be fantastic.
Yes.
Boy, it's been a long night. So you have like 6 minutes, and we asked AJ about going down to RGV and what that kind of. We didn't really ask what the experience was like because he was only there for a day. Or a couple days, but it was interesting to kind of get his perspective on the team in general and some of the talent of the younger players, and then him to point out the gulf in talent level between those players that are the USL level versus the MLS level players. I found that very interesting that he would bring that up, and I think it makes a perfect segue into RGV Express.
Okay. So,
Somos toros.
all right. So it's something, what AJ mentioned during the interview was something that even Todd Warden had mentioned when he came for the Open Cup. One of the things that was mentioned was the fact that, practices are much more different compared to when you compare Dynamo versus RGV. At the Dynamo, they're more intense. They're more intense practices. And one of the things he did mention, because I asked him, what would you take from what you've learned, what your experience with the Dynamo to take it to RGV? And he said, here with the Dynamo, the practices are a lot more intense. It's almost like you're actually playing an actual game rather than just a laid-back practice approach. And I think it's one of the things that should be implemented at RGVFC, and I think that'll make us better, he said. And, AJ makes a point that the talent is there in the USL. And he says, because we've played against USL, NASL teams that were technically second division, and they've put up a challenge to MLS teams. The problem is, with these second and third division players, because they tend to be more younger and more inexperienced, he mentions it. They tend to be more inconsistent, and I think that's been the problem with RGV as well.
That's fair.
They tend to be, at least in the attack, they tend to be a lot more inconsistent.
Absolutely.
Jacob and I were talking about yesterday about Aldo Quintanilla. All of a sudden, he went from scoring goals with the Dynamo all of a sudden to shooting sky high, some easy shots, or taking shots that are very weak, easy for the goalkeeper to catch. You just can't do that.
Yeah.
You got to maintain some sort of consistency. If your main focus is to make it to the Dynamo, you have to be more consistent than that.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the things that the Dynamo obviously look at. And if you're not going to do it, then why they're going to waste your time on you?
That's very, very true. Mm-hmm. So what are you guys talking about tomorrow night? Thursday. Oh, what happened there?
Some family thing.
Familial things? Oh.
Yeah, that came up in the last minute.
Oh, okay.
And tomorrow's the only time we can do it.
That makes sense. That's fine.
But
I was curious. What are you guys talking about Thursday then?
Okay.
Good, because that works out. Because there's something we need to discuss on the show on Thursday down in the Valley. We need to discuss, because you remember I said there's no way that AJ is coming back to Houston. He's going to practice there with RGV, and then he'll stay with RGV, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
And then AJ came back, and he's with the Dynamo again, and I suspect he's going to go back down to RGV for the match, and then come back up again here to practice. There's something I learned this week, and I want to address it on the show because I think it's important for RGV fans to hear this as well. So there's your tease. There was one thing you're going to talk about. What else are you guys talking about?
So we're talking about the Sacramento match that happened on Saturday, which did happen.
It did happen. You weren't sleeping. You weren't dreaming. It really did happen. That wasn't just the nightmare that keeps on screaming. It really happened.
And it's interesting because Papa Murphy's Park we don't have the best of luck there. That stadium was witness to the worst defeat in RGVFC history last year, and as well in this match, everything looked so well in the first half. It was, and the commentators put it was a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of game for both teams.
Absolutely.
In the first half, it was all RGV dominating. Yeah. Tyler Derrick had some good saves, but it was mostly RGV with the opportunities. Carlos Esmal scored in the 30th second of the match.
That was incredible.
Fastest goal in the history of RGVFC.
You didn't even get time to turn the freaking stream on. You already scored.
I didn't I managed to get on the stream because I was at my cousin's house.
Yeah.
And they had already scored.
Yeah, no.
I was like, wait,
crazy.
what? I was like, wait, what? Are you serious?
I saw it, and I thought at first it said the 30th minute, and I was like, I thought the game just started, and then that was the 30th second. Oh. Yeah.
So it was a good through ball by Aldo Quintanilla towards Carlos Esmal. He was able to outpace his three defenders. Yeah. Three defenders going at him. Yeah. And he was able to curl the ball away from Josh Cullen. I believe that's the goalkeeper's name. Mm-hmm. But then in the second half, it was all Sacramento. Yeah. Sacramento just started pushing, took advantage of their set piece opportunities. Set piece. There's that word again.
Oh man, not just RGV, but in general.
It's
but,
the whole Dynamo
RGV,
system.
It hurts with RGV right now. It just hurts.
So
I want to say this. We brought up AJ. We said he was down there, and you got a chance to watch him for a half, and I don't want it now. What I'm doing is I'm encouraging our Dynamo listeners and fans to tune in on Thursday night, starting at 7 p.m. Central, on the same YouTube channel you're on right now, to listen and the guys on Down in the Valley, and I will make sure, but they will. It's not even a question. They will discuss how AJ looked. They'll discuss how Tyler looked, because Tyler played as well. And that way you guys can get a chance to, expose yourself to, that was bad choice of words. Get a chance to be exposed to.
That doesn't help you.
That's better. That's better, to be exposed to, to RGV. And it's really good. We, just as much as we need to support Dynamo, we need to support RGV as a Dynamo fan base and help that grow and help that relationship. And those fans, RGV fans that are still struggling with this idea of independence and the Dynamo don't care about us, I think if the fans show that support and that love and say, hey, you're part of the family, I think that goes a long way too. And that's what this is. This is family, no doubt about it. And so, I just wanted to tease that for you. That's 2 teases I've given you for Thursday's show. So, I'm throwing some love your way down in the Valley. I'm expecting your Down in the Valley listeners to show up in droves because you got a lot of good stuff to talk about, and they really need to come on and watch the show live and give you guys some more fan engagement and listener and watching engagement, because it makes a big difference when you're recording. Trust me, as somebody who knows this very well.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah, so basically that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about more about the Sacramento match. We're going to be talking about RGVFC's next match, which is this Saturday against Oklahoma City Energy.
Mm-hmm.
I
Alex
will be down
Dixon,
there.
Former Dynamo player.
Yeah, so Dynamo fans, you might want to tune into that.
Seriously, man. It's Dynamo RGV Love Hour. I mean, that's what that becomes.
Yeah, and so we're going to talk about that as well. We're going to discuss as well, what is it about this team that just falls apart? I'm talking about the defense.
Yeah.
Why do they fall apart when they're away?
Yeah.
Because we know
that conversation could be had with the Dynamo too.
Yeah, because we know that the offense is just been flat home and away.
Absolutely.
But it's just that at home, the defense is able to keep us afloat.
Yeah.
But when they're away,
the defense isn't there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
good. That sounds amazing, and I will definitely be hopping on, at least for part of the show, to discuss AJ, to discuss just like we were talking about, the travel with AJ and why that's important for AJ and the Dynamo.
Yes.
And just in general. So, make sure you tune into Down in the Valley every Wednesday, this week, Thursday, at 7 p.m. Central on the same YouTube channel, which is the Down in the Valley YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. Make sure you tune in for us. Our show is over, by the way. We literally have had no time to discuss things beyond what was, guest things. But make sure you tune in every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central for Generation Orange. Remember to like, subscribe, share the video. Share our tweets if you can.
If you can, help us with tips.
Help us with tips. Follow us on Twitter at Gen Orange Radio. Follow us on, you can't follow us on Facebook. We don't have Facebook. We seriously need to get our act together on that, but I digress. Make sure you guys are tweeting about us. Make sure you're sharing us with your friends and your family. Let them know, hey, there's this going on. Hit up Reddit. Apparently there's a lot of Redditors that had no clue that we even existed. So hit up Reddit. When you have fans that are sitting near you and you talk to them during the match, let them know, hey, there's this really cool podcast, internet show that you guys should watch on a weekly basis. They air at 7 p.m. on every Tuesday night. Just get people hyped, man. It really does make a big difference. And huge shout out to our ticket rep, Julio Urena, mine and Cisco's ticket rep. He coordinated with me to set aside a bunch of tickets for the Dynamo Discord for the U.S. Open Cup final, which means about 10 to 12 of us are all going to sit together for the final, and it's going to be just completely lit. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's going to be lit. When you have that many fans that are diehard, hardcore fans who love the game and who love this team, it's going to be loud. It's going to be crazy. And so if you're anywhere, if you haven't bought tickets yet and you get a chance to buy tickets, you want to get them in 102 if at all possible. That's where we'll be. So I wanted to throw that out there. Huge thanks to Derek. Huge thanks to Jay. Huge thanks to Jesus. Huge thanks to AJ for coming on the show. We cannot thank them enough for coming on the show and giving us some insight into what they deal with and what stuff they see in their perspective. It's always great to have that different point of view, even if we don't always agree. I'm looking at you, Jesus. And make sure you follow them. Make sure you like their stuff that they're putting out. Retweet it when you can. Share it when you can. Subscribe to Pro Soccer USA. Help Jesus out. Help grow coverage of the Dynamo, even if it's just online for right now. That's got to start somewhere. We've got to start it somewhere, so start it.
Down in the RGVE.com as well. And the occasional times that I'll start putting some Dynamo stuff there as well. And there is something that is brewing up on a personal level.
Things.
On a not only for us, but also on a personal level for myself. So I will let you all know when I do receive confirmation about it.
And huge shout out to Ray, who just became a writer for BGN Writing. Yeah, it's a huge deal for him. So congratulations, Ray. We're proud of you, man. That's all I can say. We're proud of you. So keep up the good work, guys. And to everybody, stay forever orange. Somos Toros. -TF on. And we are Gen Orange.
Take care, guys. We'll see
Night,
you.
Guys.
We'll see you on next week.
See you Thursday, really.
I carried you home, taking all the weight off your shoulders. Now we're long gone, falling into 1 year older. It's funny how our love began when I was sober. Now I stumble in a room where nobody else cares. Now I'm in two minds thinking about you. I'm in two minds thinking whether I'm too kind to give you all of my truth. I'm in two minds thinking. Now I'm in two minds thinking about you. I'm in two minds thinking whether I'm too kind to give you all of my truth. I'm in two minds thinking. We've been knocked down way too many times, and now my tries deja vu round, spinning me into another lost time. Tell me where this road will end before I drive over the edge. Give me one break to recover myself, because I can't bear. Now I'm in two minds thinking about you. I'm in two minds thinking whether I'm too kind to give you all of my truth. I'm in two minds thinking. Now I'm in two minds thinking about you. I'm in two minds thinking whether I'm too kind to give you all of my truth. I'm in two minds thinking.